I have never done an experiment with affiliate clubs in Football Manager, and today, that's about to change. I was flicking through the in-game editor and found out there are a ton of different options for the type of relationships two clubs can have, from having the exact same board or having financial help to things like scouting and using the parent club facilities. This is really interesting. I think we can do a lot with it in terms of Football Manager experiments. Today though, I want to see just how overpowered we can make some of these affiliations. So what I've decided to do is take my club Lincoln City and I've made them an affiliate club of every single Premier League team, and every single Premier League team pays them £1 million per year. So as you can see, all the Premier League clubs are here. They have the option to loan players to Lincoln City with no obligation for Lincoln to play, but obviously being in the Football League, you can only have 5 loan players at a time, so they're not going to get 20 loan players, one from each club for example, but every single club is paying them £1 million per season. And I want to see if this will rocket Lincoln City up to the Premier League. There are 2 more clubs that I want to add to the Lincoln City affiliates though, and they are Atalanta and Sassuolo. Why is that, do you ask? Well, it's because you can watch both of those teams in action this weekend on the One Football app, the sponsors of today's video. You can download the One Football app for absolutely free from the top line of the description. Once you've got it, make sure you open it up and look up Serie A. Once you're in there, you can go over to the match week that we're looking for, find this Sassuolo and Atalanta game, and at the weekend you'll be able to see a big tab that says watch on there. There's also a ton of other live football matches on there for you guys to watch as well, so take your pick, and downloading the app really helps me and the channel out. But of course we need to make Atalanta and Sassuolo an affiliate club, so using the in-game editor, I'm going to go to edit club details, head over to current affiliations where there are an absolute ton. Holy! Why do Atalanta have so many affiliations? That's ridiculous. Well, I guess one more won't hurt, so we'll add in there Lincoln City. And now that we've got them, we're going to allow players to go on loan, send financial help, and make it £1 million per season. Now all that's left to do is simulate into the future, but to check it's working, we're going to go 2 seasons in the future. Personally, I think that over the course of 10 to 15 seasons, all of this money should be enough to get Lincoln City into the Premier League, and they should be there fairly comfortably. If you agree with me, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you disagree with me, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Would love to have you guys here for the ride as we head into FM23. If you want to pick up a cheap copy of it, link down in the description to Fanatical. The reason we're going to go 2 years into the future rather than 1 year is because Lincoln City won't get the money until 1 year has passed since the affiliation was created. Because we created the affiliation in July 2021, the first bit of money isn't going to come through until July 2022. Then they've got a full summer to spend that £22 million, and hopefully by the end of season 2, we're going to see some nice results. So using the in-game editor, I've made myself a Lincoln City manager so we can look at the finances and see how the club have got on. As you can see, there was a monumental increase right here up to £23.5 million, and they've done well spending it by looks of things. They're down to just under £17 million, so I'm kind of hoping a lot of that has been spent on transfers or stadium upgrades or something along those lines. It's a big chunk of money for Lincoln City, and if they get that every single season, wow, they're in. Looking through the club's affiliates, all 22 are still there, but it's going to be interesting to see how quickly these drop off. At some point, the boards of Arsenal, Aston Villa, Atalanta, etc., are going to realise that giving Lincoln City £1 million every single season is not financially a good thing for them, so they're going to start to cancel affiliations as well. There's also a second way that these clubs are going to terminate the links between Lincoln City and the Premier League clubs, and that's if they play in the same league. As you can see here, playing in the same division will terminate the link between Arsenal and Lincoln City. Now, obviously, if Lincoln get to the Premier League, that's the goal of this experiment, and all of these links will get terminated. But as you can see, Brentford have been relegated to the Championship, as have Norwich, and I presume someone else down here will have been relegated as well. Although, yeah, Crystal Palace got relegated too, so they're also in the Championship. If Lincoln got promoted this season, next season, Crystal Palace, Norwich and Brentford, those links will be terminated. So that's another way that these links are gone. So have Lincoln used this money to get promoted? Well, let's have a look at their history, where they finished 20th in Season 1, because that's a 2021-22 season. Understandable, they didn't have the money there. If we look into Season 2 then, they also came 20th. So they've not made much use of this money at all. What's going on here, Lincoln? Okay, looks like they only spent £62,000 this past season, which is not ideal, I'll be honest with you. They got 5 loan players in from the Premier League, but they're not great players. Although they got the money in July, didn't they? So by that point, the transfer budget would have been set in stone. So I guess they didn't have a £10 million transfer budget just yet. If we look at the finances here, you can see it's £8 million now, but they've not spent it yet. Hopefully next season then they'll spend it. So jumping into season 3, if we look for Lincoln City, I'm not the manager of them right now, but we want to have a look and see how they've got on. 3rd in League One and promotion to the Championship. So it took the first 2 seasons to actually get that money into the transfer budget. So it's a little bit of a slow build, but that, to me, is overpowered because Lincoln City should not really be promoted to the Championship. As a Lincoln fan, we're not quite there. Lincoln actually reached the playoff final a couple of seasons ago in League One. We lost to Blackpool, sadly, for us. But we got there. I'm going to say it's a bit of a fluke, really. We had a lot of really good players in on loan who shouldn't have been at the club. They were too good for League One, let alone Lincoln City. They carried us to the playoff final, and we've not quite been the same since. We've been a lower half table in League One, which is probably the right place for the club. But you know what? I'll take promotion here. Fantastic stuff. 3rd in the league, won the playoffs. You couldn't want more. Oh, but they did not spend money. They got 3 players in on frees, and they bought 2 players for a combined total of £275,000. They sold Max Sanders of Coventry for more than they bought players in for. Got a lot of players in on loan. That feels like more than the 5 they're allowed, so I'm not quite sure how they've got away with that. But it got them promoted. Wages have gone up massively though. There's no way Lincoln City in real life can afford to pay most of their team over £3,000 per week, with the highest earners on nearly 10 grand a week. Obviously, most of the money that they've been given has gone into the wages. So I'm going to jump into season 4 now. I want to see how their first season in the Championship has gone. Maybe I shouldn't have checked. That's not what I want to see. Lincoln. I mean, 2 points off safety is not, it's not great. I mean, they brought a ton of players in. Oh, that is a mental amount of players to bring in to the club, which probably unsettled absolutely everyone. They spent £2 million, though, on a lot of players. And I guess they must have a decent team. It's just they didn't gel. That's what I'm hoping, at least. But again, if I just quickly use the in-game editor to make myself the Lincoln City manager and look at the finance, £30 million in the bank, £25 million transfer budget. Spend it, Lincoln. Come on. I guess their reputation is holding them back because their reputation is still very low, I imagine, compared to a lot of Championship clubs. So players don't want to join them, but if they've got the money, that should really help. Even bringing in the high reputation players because they'll see the money and think, yeah, I'll go to Lincoln for the money. Interestingly, affiliate income comes down as other income. So 21 million. That suggests a team has let go. I've just counted, there's 21 teams there. So who's in the Championship? This Leicester. So Leicester are no longer an affiliate of Lincoln because they're both in the Championship at the same time. This is where it's going to start to get harder and harder for Lincoln because they're slowly, as I assume going to yo-yo between the Championship and League One for a little bit, they're going to start to lose those affiliations as they start to be in the same division as teams who are affiliated with them. But I think we've done enough of the early years. I'm going to jump forward to the 10th season to see how they've got on. And looking at Lincoln City, okay, what we can see is that training and new facilities have been upgraded. They have changed since right at the start, so they've used some of this affiliation money to upgrade stuff, which is a good start. That's what you want to see. They've also very recently built a brand new, nearly 20,000 seater stadium, so obviously the crowds are turning up in force. They must be getting some pretty decent attendances. What I am concerned about, though, is that they have about £17 million of loan debt, which means that something may have gone slightly wrong. They are currently 14th in the Championship, so they're not in the Premier League yet, which is what I would have predicted by season 10. If we look at Lincoln City's history, how have they got... Oh, wow, they've only had 2 seasons in the Championship. This one and the one that we saw in season 4. They've actually been a League One club for quite some time. It looks like coming 7th twice and 3rd once. They've had a few playoff runs, but haven't won the playoffs. They actually came 3rd in 29-30, around the 31 season, so they won the playoffs there. So this is actually their first season back in the Championship. This has not been as effective as I thought. I'm a little concerned. And look at that. How many affiliate clubs have just gone? Virtually all of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 left. So we've gone from 22 to 11. that's going to really reduce the income of Lincoln City, and maybe that's why they haven't been able to get to the Premier League. But given that Lincoln have only had 2 seasons in the Championship, I'm going to assume that most of it has just been the boards of all of these clubs thinking, hang on, we're giving £1 million to this random club in League One, let's stop doing that. I mean, Atalanta and Sassuolo, they are no longer there, so obviously they've thought that there's no chance they could ever be in the same league as Lincoln City. And given they've only had 1 or 2 seasons in the Championship, most of these links aren't going to be terminated because they were in the same division. So it has just been a case of the boards of these Premier League clubs thinking this isn't great for us, we need to cut loose. I mean, looking at the Championship now, I'm going to assume that the West Ham, that deal must have been cut because of being in the Championship at the same time, the same as Norwich. But they're the only 2 that I think could have been cut because of being in the same division. Obviously, they add to the Leicester one that we had, that's 3. So that means that 8 other clubs thought, let's stop doing this right now, we're going to cut loose. But they've not really been spending big money. This past season, £700,000, 180k the season before that, 2 million the season before that, 5 million in the 2027-28 season. This, of course, was all in League One, where they just couldn't get out of League One, but they're spending that much money. It's a little bit embarrassing at that point. 1.8 million the season before that, 2 million the season before that, 2 million the season before that, 400k the season before that, and I think that's the last season that we saw together in season 4. So, I mean, this has not been great. They're spending a ton of money for the level that they're at and not getting the results. But Lincoln's reputation is 5,500, which is, I mean, nowhere near what they need to be really to attract the very best players. I mean, West Ham won the title, their reputation is 7,000, so there's still a big gap despite Lincoln probably being one of the richest clubs in the Championship. Again, making myself the manager to look at the finances, they are in quite the downward trend. At one point, back in 2026, they had £50 million in the bank account. They now only have 10 million. They'll obviously get a boost of £11 million when the new affiliate club budgets come through, so that'll boost things up a little bit. And a transfer budget of 17 million, but they're slowly going down. Projection-wise is, oh my word, projection-wise is not looking good. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and simulate into the future for a little while, and I'll come back in an hour or 2 to see what's happened and see where Lincoln City have got up to. Okay, I left it another hour and a half or so. I've come back and we're now at season 17. So the first thing I notice is that the training and youth facilities have been massively upgraded since we were last here, which is really good. Obviously, they're looking to develop players by themselves as opposed to bringing other talent in, which obviously is sustainable for the future. I'm also very interested as to why they've got like full scouting knowledge of India and Pakistan and Afghanistan, and I think Bangladesh in there as well. That seems a bit strange. A lot of Central Africa is also well scouted, and the Caribbean. So I'm kind of thinking maybe the scouts are just trying to get some nice holidays somewhere, really. But since we last checked in when they were in the Championship, they have become an established Championship club, coming 7th one season, 15th, 18th, 15th, 19th, and then 6th last season, which means they reached the playoffs last season. And then this season, they've come 14th by looks of things, as you can see. So in 17 seasons, they've become an established Championship mid-table team. And you know what? As a Lincoln City fan, that's basically my dream, because that seems unthinkable. Oh, I'm just looking at the playoff final from last season. They lost it in extra time to Norwich. Imagine if they'd won that. But that feels, looking at the club's actual history, that season they got to the playoff final, that feels very much like in real life when Lincoln reached the playoff final of League One. It was a season of massive overachievement when you look at the actual history of the club when they've been a lower table team in the Championship. That just seems like a one-off, particularly coming 14th this next season. And again, just looking at the graph here for players they've brought in, they've never spent more than £4 or £5 million in a season. By looks of things, last season they sold £11 million worth of players, so obviously their model has become selling players. You can see over the past 5 seasons, generally speaking, their net transfer sales are way bigger than the transfers in. And looking at the affiliate clubs, they still actually have 9 Premier League clubs affiliated, so they are getting £9 million a season still from this. They've actually made a link with Basford as well, where they loan players out to Basford, so they paid £20,000 for that one, so that's a interesting development for the affiliates. But they're still getting a ton of money in, but I guess whilst they've become an established Championship team, they are spending a lot more money now. So I think we'll end the experiment there. I think it's been interesting to see how affiliate clubs and all the money can affect a club. I'll be honest, it's not done nearly as much as I would have hoped for Lincoln City. However, I'm trying to think back to every save that I've done across Football Manager, and you guys think as well. When have you ever seen Lincoln City become an established championship team? In the odd time in my saves, I've seen them become a championship team for a season and get relegated, but they've never become established, and I've never seen Lincoln get to a playoff without me managing them. I've never seen them get to a championship playoff final without me managing them. So clearly in a situation where we've created a very overpowered situation where they get £20 million a season plus, obviously that reduces over time, but we've created such an overpowered situation, and to be honest, I don't think we've seen any overpowered results. I think actually Lincoln have underachieved massively here, which is disappointing. So maybe we should do it in the future with a whole different range of teams to see if there are different results based on reputation. But I also want to do a ton more experiments based on affiliate clubs in the future as well. So let me know what you want to see down in the comment section and we'll see if we can get it done.